Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into a career path that I'll admit I didn't know much about before we started researching it, becoming a shipping agent. Luckily, we've got excerpts from RoleCatcher's career guide and an expert here to help us unpack it all.
Yeah, it's definitely a field that's often overlooked, but it plays a really crucial role in the global economy. Think about it. Everything that you order online, like any piece of technology, article of clothing, chances are it was transported by sea at some point. And a shipping agent helped make that happen.
Okay, that's a way more interesting way to think about it than just someone who deals with ships.
Definitely.
So, for those of us who haven't spent much time on a dock, what does a shipping agent actually do?
So picture this. A massive cargo ship pulls into port after weeks at sea. It's carrying goods from all over the world. Now, the shipping agent is the ship owner's representative, like on the ground. They're the ones making sure that everything goes smoothly.
So they're not literally steering the ship,
Right.
but they're kind of steering the whole operation once it gets to the port.
Exactly. They're the ones coordinating with customs officials to get the cargo cleared. They're managing all the logistics of unloading and storage. They even deal with things like crew changes and making sure the ship gets any maintenance that it needs.
The guide mentions customs clearance a lot. What does that actually entail? Because that sounds like it could be a bureaucratic nightmare.
Oh, it definitely can be, especially because you're dealing with all these different countries, each with their own regulations and paperwork. We're talking bills of lading, certificates of origin, cargo manifests, like the list just goes on, and the shipping agent has to be fluent in all of it, making sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed to avoid these like really costly delays.
Wow. So attention to detail is key. But I imagine it takes more than just being good with paperwork. You've got to be good with people, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A good shipping agent is also a master communicator and a skilled negotiator. You might be dealing with a really stubborn customs official 1 minute, and then like the next minute, you're mediating a dispute between the cargo owner and the shipping line.
Yeah.
So yeah, those interpersonal skills, that ability to understand different perspectives and find common ground are super valuable.
The guide also mentions Fiata a few times. Is that some kind of like secret shipping agent society?
Not so secret, but it's definitely important in the industry. So FIATA, it stands for the International Federation of Freight Forwarders Associations.
Okay.
It's basically a global organization that sets standards and advocates for the industry as a whole.
Okay.
Being FIATA accredited is a really big deal in the shipping world. It shows that you take your profession seriously and that you adhere to the highest ethical and operational standards.
Okay, so it's like a mark of quality and trustworthiness. The guide also hints that the shipping industry is rapidly changing. What are some of the biggest forces that are shaping the future of shipping, and what does that mean for someone who, wants to be a shipping agent?
Well, just like in so many other industries, technology is a huge factor. Things like automation, data analytics, real-time tracking are transforming how things operate in the shipping world. For example, we're seeing more and more of these smart ports. They use AI to optimize like everything from ship scheduling to how cargo is handled.
So a modern shipping agent can't just, rely on like old school methods anymore.
Right.
They need to be tech savvy,
Yeah,
comfortable with new technology.
absolutely. But it's not even just about the tech itself. It's about how it's being used to address some of the biggest challenges in the industry. Things like improving efficiency, reducing costs, minimizing their environmental impact.
Right, because the guide touches on sustainability. I'm curious to hear more about environmental considerations within the shipping world.
Yeah, so for a really long time, the shipping industry wasn't exactly known for being green. But with growing concerns about climate change and pollution, there's a huge push for more sustainable practices. We're talking about stricter emission standards for ships. We're talking about alternative fuels. We're even talking about optimizing routes to use less fuel and lower carbon emissions.
So a shipping agent might actually be involved in making those kinds of sustainability initiatives happen.
Oh, absolutely. They might be working with companies to make sure they're following new environmental regulations. They might be figuring out if it's feasible to use things like biofuels or shore power for the ships while they're in port. They could even be optimizing cargo loading plans to make the ship lighter and reduce drag. It's a really interesting time to be in the industry because you're not just facilitating trade, you're also playing a part in making global commerce more sustainable.
That's not a side of the job you always hear about, like the opportunity to really make a positive impact
Yeah,
on the environment.
it's definitely becoming more and more important both for companies and for people who want to work in this field.
Okay, so we've established that this is a dynamic industry, and the role of a shipping agent is a lot more than meets the eye. But what about the actual job itself? What are the perks, the pitfalls, the realities of this career? Let's dig into that after the break. So the guide gets into some of the pros and cons of actually being a shipping agent, and it really seems like there's a lot to weigh. Let's start with the good stuff. What are like the most appealing aspects of this job?
Well, you're right at the heart of global trade.
Yeah.
And I think that comes with a certain level of excitement. Every day is different. You're interacting with people from all these different cultures. And there's like a real sense of accomplishment knowing that you're part of keeping these essential goods moving around the world.
Yeah, like you're a conductor,
Right.
orchestrating this massive symphony of ships and cargo and people.
Exactly. And speaking of all those different parts of the world, one of the big perks that often attract people to this career is the potential for travel. Now, it might not be glamorous vacations, but you could find yourself working in these bustling international ports, experiencing these really different cultures firsthand.
Okay, so maybe not sipping cocktails on a beach somewhere,
Right.
but still pretty darn cool. The guide also mentions good pay and a flexible schedule. What's the reality there?
It always depends on the specific role in the company.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, shipping agents, they're in demand. And that usually translates into some pretty competitive salaries.
Oh, eh.
And since this is an industry that basically operates around the clock, you might be able to find opportunities for like flexible hours or shift work,
Yeah,
which can be a big plus for some people.
definitely. But let's be honest. The guide also mentions some downsides, high stress levels, long hours, even potential for danger. That last one, kind of piqued my interest.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, I mean, it's not all smooth sailing, so to speak.
Right.
Shipping is a complex industry. You've got tight deadlines, unexpected delays. Sometimes you're literally dealing with Mother Nature herself. Remember that big storm we talked about earlier?
Oh, yeah.
That can throw a wrench into even the most well-planned operation.
Yeah, I imagine those situations require a lot of quick thinking, a lot of
Yeah.
problem solving on your feet.
You got it. There was this one time I remember a shipment of perishable goods was delayed
Oh, no.
because of a strike at the port. And we had to scramble to find alternative transportation, storage to keep everything from spoiling, all while trying to navigate, you know, all the regulations
Oh, my God.
and all the different people involved.
Talk about a high pressure situation. I bet that really tested your negotiation skills.
Definitely. But that's part of the job. You have to be able to stay calm when things get crazy. You have to think critically, and you've got to be able to come up with creative solutions when things don't go according to plan.
So it sounds like a career that would really appeal to someone who, thrives in that kind of dynamic environment, someone who likes to solve problems, who isn't really afraid of a little bit of chaos.
Exactly. You got to be adaptable. You got to be resourceful. You need a real knack for thinking on your feet.
Yeah. The guide also emphasizes the importance of active listening and understanding cultural nuances. Why are those skills so important for a shipping agent?
Well, because this is such a globalized industry, you're going to be interacting with people from all walks of life, different backgrounds, and they're all going to have different communication styles and different ways of doing business. What might be considered polite and professional in one culture could be completely misinterpreted in another.
And I imagine miscommunication like that could lead to some pretty costly misunderstanding, especially when you're talking about like contracts and legal agreements and things like that.
Absolutely. That's where that active listening comes in.
Yeah.
It's not just about hearing the words, it's about actually understanding where the other person's coming from, asking the right questions, building that trust.
So a good shipping agent is also like a cultural ambassador in a way, bridging those cultural gaps and making sure that everything runs smoothly.
Precisely. It's a skill that, takes time to develop, but it's essential for being successful in this line of work.
Okay, so we've talked about the demands of the job, the skills, the excitement, even the potential for a little bit of danger. But let's get down to brass tacks here. Someone's listening to this and they're hooked. They can really see themselves as a shipping agent. What does the path look like from like wide-eyed newbie to seasoned pro?
So the guide, it lays out a pretty typical career progression. You might start out in an entry-level position, like as a logistics coordinator or a documentation specialist. That's where you're going to get the foundations of those day-to-day operations.
So starting with those foundational skills, learning how to do the paperwork, understanding the processes, and then working your way up.
Exactly. And as you gain experience, you might move into a role like an operations manager, where you're handling a wider range of responsibilities, managing a team, maybe even overseeing like a specific trade route or region.
And for those people who really want to climb the ladder, the guide also mentions the possibility of like becoming a shipping operations director, essentially running the whole show.
Right. But that level of responsibility usually comes after years, sometimes even decades of experience. It's a demanding role. It requires you to have a deep understanding of the industry, really strong leadership skills, and the ability to make those strategic decisions that are going to have an impact on like the entire company.
So it's a long-term career path with plenty of room to move up, to specialize. But it sounds like it's not just about like climbing the ladder. It's about gaining those essential skills and experiences along the way. What are some practical things that someone could do if they want to break into this field?
The best advice I can give is to try and get some hands-on experience early on.
Mm,
Look for internships, even entry-level jobs in companies that are involved in shipping and logistics.
yeah.
This could be with like shipping lines, freight forwarding firms, even port authorities,
Okay.
because that practical experience is invaluable. It's one thing to read about customs clearance. It's another thing entirely to be on the ground, interacting with those customs officials, figuring out that paperwork.
And those soft skills too, the communication, the problem solving, you can really hone those on the job.
You got it. Plus, those early experiences help you start building your professional network, which is important in any field, but I think it's especially important in shipping because it's such an interconnected world.
Speaking of networking, the guide mentions the importance of joining some of those like industry organizations like FIATA. How can those connections really benefit someone just starting out?
Well, organizations like that offer a ton of resources. You've got industry publications, you've got training programs, there's networking events and conferences. They're a great way to stay up to date on the latest trends, the newest regulations, connect with people who have been in the industry for years, maybe even find a mentor.
It's like having a built-in support system
Yeah,
in this really complex and constantly changing field.
absolutely. And then as you gain more experience, look for ways to specialize. The guide mentions a bunch of different paths. So you could focus on a certain type of cargo.
Uh-huh.
You could really get to know a specific geographic region. You could even become an expert in a niche area like maritime law or insurance.
Because as we've already said, this industry is always evolving. There's always something new to learn, a new challenge to overcome, a new part of the world to explore.
Precisely. And I think that's what makes it such an exciting field to be a part of.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of navigating the complexities of this field, maybe we should talk about RoleCatcher itself for a minute.
You've mentioned some really interesting things about their platform, how it's, more than just a job board.
Yeah.
It seems like it's almost tailor-made for someone who wants to be a shipping agent.
It really does. Remember all those pain points we talked about in the persona? Feeling overwhelmed by the job search? Dreading those interviews? RoleCatcher seems to have an answer for just about everything.
That's like having like a digital first mate to guide you through it all.
Exactly.
So how does RoleCatcher actually help with all that, especially for someone who's just starting out?
Well, one of the things I really like is that it pulls in job listings from all these different places. Company websites, job boards, you name it.
Okay.
So you don't have to spend hours and hours like going through all these different websites.
Right.
You just see everything in one place.
That's a huge time saver, especially when you're, trying to juggle applications, you're networking. It's a lot.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just listings, too. They have this really cool feature that actually analyzes your skills based on like your resume.
Oh, wow.
And then it compares those to the skills that are needed for like specific jobs.
That's cool.
So you can kind of see where you stand, figure out if there are any like gaps you need to fill.
That's really useful. It's like having a personalized skills assessment right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you do find that there are areas where you need to like brush up, they'll even give you recommendations for like online courses or certifications.
Oh, wow.
It's all about making sure that you're as prepared as possible.
Okay, that's impressive. But what about the interview process? Because I know a lot of people, myself included, find that to be super nerve-wracking.
Oh, tell me about it. But RoleCatcher, they've actually got a solution for that too. They have this massive library of practice interview questions.
Okay.
And they're all tailored to different jobs, different industries.
So you can like practice your answers,
Exactly.
get comfortable talking about your skills and experience.
Yeah, and here's the really wild part. They actually have this AI-powered feedback tool.
Wait, what?
It analyzes your responses and then gives you personalized suggestions.
Hold on. AI that gives you feedback on your interview skills. That sounds amazing, but also a little terrifying.
It's definitely cutting edge,
Yeah.
but it's designed to make you feel more confident, more prepared when you go into that interview.
So it's like having your own personal interview coach without having to pay for one.
Precisely.
Mm.
And honestly, from what I've seen, the feedback is really good. It's not just generic stuff. It's tailored to what you're saying, the specific industry.
Wow. That's really impressive. It really does seem like RoleCatcher's really thought of everything to really support someone who, wants to start a career in shipping.
They really have, and I think that level of support, especially in a field like this, it's really invaluable.
This has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of shipping agents. We've learned so much from the ins and outs of the job itself to how the whole industry is changing, the importance of technology.
And don't forget all those human elements. The adaptability, being able to communicate across cultures, staying calm under pressure. That's what really makes a great shipping agent.
Absolutely. It seems like it takes a unique blend of those really strong technical skills and really strong interpersonal skills.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So for anyone listening out there who's intrigued by this world, who, really thrives in that fast-paced, ever-changing environment and is ready to really dive into this world of global trade, maybe this is the career for you.
Definitely.
And if you're ready to chart your course, head over to RoleCatcher. They might just be the wind in your sails. That's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.